Welcome to the Friday Night Campfire Stories. My name is Rob and I will be your host for this evening. If you're new to this channel, I'm a short story writer, and every single Friday we experience one chapter from one of my short stories. However, you may be noticing this video was posted on a Saturday. That's because yesterday we had the finale of my story called Sliced. Sliced follows Chef Katie Thompson, who is a chef who is struggling to find a personal life to match her gourmet professional life. That is until she receives a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that she thinks will make her dreams come true. However, she finds out that achieving your dreams may create your biggest nightmares. So, again, this was posted on a Saturday. That is because yesterday we had the finale of Sliced, and now what I like to do is the Saturday after we finish the story is compile all 4 chapters into one video for you guys to be able to enjoy it, in case you're trying to get caught up, or maybe you are going on a long run, or commute to work or something. You can watch the whole thing from start to finish without having to stop and do each video. Some of you may actually enjoy this version more, so that's why I want to put it out there for you guys. So, without further ado, let's get into my story called Sliced. Sliced, Chapter 1. The kitchen of the Lumineer in New York City was a battleground of clattering pans and sharp knives, where every sizzle and chop echoed the intensity of its culinary ambitions. At its heart, Chef Katie Thompson labored tirelessly, her hands a blur of precise motions, creating a masterpiece under the oppressive gaze of Chef Otto Gannon. Otto, a tyrant in a pristine white coat, basked in the spotlight of magazine covers and TV interviews, while Katie's brilliance simmered in shadows, unacknowledged and overworked. It was a busy Friday night, and guests were piling in, everyone trying just to get a whiff of the food coming from this 6-star kitchen. This was no easy task, but Chef Katie was leading the charge to make sure every single dish came out perfect as the last. It had just gotten to the point where Chef Otto would just be standing at the pass like a statue, taking pictures with paying customers, signing autographs, everything but his job. Chef Katie always felt so discouraged about it. She had paid her way through culinary school and finished top of her class. She even had a local magazine talk about how she was going to be one of the top chefs in the world in a few years. Here we are a few years after the interview, and she's stuck here working under Chef Otto. Katie always felt like Chef Otto was gatekeeping her from the rest of the world because he didn't want to lose his prized possession. It kept him from being able to be a celebrity instead of a chef. For 5 years now, Katie has yet to see Chef Otto even pick up a knife, yet he makes 100 times her salary. Every time she asked for a raise, Chef Otto said that he would review her reports at a later time. Chef Katie had always wanted to leave for another restaurant, but when she would go to apply, she would never hear back from them. She felt for some reason Chef Otto was behind this too, but she couldn't prove it. This always got her down as she started doubting her skills. Every time she's in the kitchen though, she puts all the negativity behind her and cooks with soul and love as every talented chef does. After the restaurant closes at night and all the chefs, other than Otto of course, stay behind to make sure the kitchen is as clean as when the kitchen was first built, Katie gets on the nearest subway and heads home for the evening. It always took her an hour to get home on a good night. Katie arrived at her apartment in Brownsville and walked past the elevator that had been out of commission since she first moved in. She would open the door to the stairwell and climb up the 12 flights of stairs to her tiny 100-square-foot apartment. Her apartment was a grim testament to the brutal reality of the New York City cutthroat housing market. Crammed into a claustrophobic 100 square feet, the space reeked of neglect and desperation. The single flickering overhead light cast a sickly yellow hue over the peeling wallpaper and stained linoleum floors, where a perpetual layer of grime seemed immune to her futile cleaning efforts. The tiny kitchenette was a mockery of her culinary talents, with a rusty hot plate, a chip sink perpetually clogged with murky water, and a minuscule refrigerator that buzzed angrily, barely keeping her leftovers edible. Piles of unwashed dishes teetered precautiously as a casualty of her grueling work hours. In the corner, a rickety folding table served as her only dining surface, cluttered with unopened bills, half-eaten takeout containers, and a dying plant she had long given up on reviving. Her bed, a sagging mattress on the floor, doubled as her couch, its faded sheets and lumpy pillows offering a scant comfort after an 18-hour shift. The single window, smeared with city grime, offered a dismal view of the narrow air shaft filled with trash and the occasional rat, providing little natural light or ventilation. The air inside was thick with a mingling sense of cooking oil, mold, and the unmistakable stench of city filth that seeped through the thin walls. Every inch of the apartment screamed of compromise and survival, a stark contrast to a gleaming kitchen and gourmet dishes that defined her professional life. It was a constant reminder of how far she had to go to escape the oppressive weight of her current existence. Katie would get home and fall face first into her decaying mattress every single night from pure exhaustion and depression. She could only think of the situation she was in compared to Chef Otto, who would take his helicopter home to his penthouse suite across the street from the restaurant, being greeted by his butlers and maids who kept his residence spotless to the point that you could eat every meal off the floor. Katie would probably be crying herself to sleep every night if it wasn't for the fact that she had sweated every drop of moisture in her body during her 13-hour shift. Determined she would still get as good of a night's sleep as she could before waking up, taking a shower in the shared bathroom with the rest of the residents on the floor, putting her chef jacket on, and heading to catch the subway at Rockaway Ave station. Saturday was the busiest day of the week for the Lumineer. Not only would there be a chaotic crowd for the dinner service, but also a madhouse for the afternoon lunch service as well. 10 minutes until they would open their doors and the prep work was just about done, Chef Otto would gather up all the chefs. I want a perfect 12 hours here, no mess-ups, no complaints, and if one person sends a dish back, none of you will be getting paid for today, says Chef Otto. Remember, the food you make comes first. We don't want people waiting longer for their food than they have to, so your breaks, keep them to say maybe 1 5-minute break if we get slow. Now that we are all ready to go, I must go. I have an interview with the New York City Cuisine magazine, followed by a photo shoot. So Chef Katie, make sure everyone stays in line. Yes, Chef, responds Katie. Most people would freak out if their boss left them right before the floodgates opened and customers would storm in demanding food. Chef Katie, however, was relieved to know that Chef Otto was not going to be there today. It was like a day off for her. Yes, it was going to be a stressful service, but at least she would be able to do it without the evil boss staring daggers into the back of her head. I need 1 risotto, 1 scallop for table 11, Katie calls out. Yes, Chef, the kitchen calls back. The kitchen felt so much comfortable with Chef Katie running everything. When Chef Otto was running things, it felt much more tense, having to make sure everything was perfect measurements, perfect sears, perfect techniques, all while having to do it as fast as possible, otherwise punishment would be foreshadowed. Whenever Katie ran the kitchen, everybody just did their job they knew how to do. These are the best chefs in New York City, after all. That is why they're here. Service was running smoothly, and all the guests loved the food. Everyone even got a break because the normal crowd that would sneak in just to see Chef Otto left unhappy when they found out he wasn't going to be there. Katie would grab her deli cup full of water and sit down. This felt like a day at the spa to her and for the rest of the chefs as well. This was the first time in months that they were able to take a break while at work. The break would not last long, though, as they had to start the prep work for the dinner service. Dinner service was always an adventure when Chef Otto was there. It was so hot in the kitchen that hell would have pity over the chefs who had temporary residence there. Katie was up for the challenge today, though, because she had an overwhelming confidence that she had lacked when Satan himself, aka Otto, was breathing down her neck. The rest of service went smooth as silk as no one returned their plate from the entire day, meaning that they would all be receiving payment for their hours worked. Everyone helped out and cleaned the kitchen, and they would all head home for the night. Katie made it to the platform to wait for the subway. She had a smile on her face. She was so proud of herself and how the kitchen performed today. She thought of all the compliments that she got from the customers, and she found a bit of happiness in what had been a pretty sad few years for her. As she was standing, waiting for the train, which was late again, she would hear footsteps walk up to her. "Hey, weren't you the chef running service at the Lumineer tonight?" asked the stranger. Katie was taken aback for a second, but responded, "Yes, I am. I'm usually the sous chef, but Chef Otto was out today." "I thought that was you. Let me say, that was some of the best food I've had in my entire life," the stranger explained. "I've had Lumineer multiple times. It's one of my favorites. When I went there tonight, I was worried it wasn't going to be as good because Chef Otto wasn't there, but you stepped up and delivered a meal I don't even think he could." Katie started blushing. "Why, thank you. It means the world to me to hear that." "Say, do you ever think about starting your own restaurant?" asked the nice man. "All the time," she says with excitement. "It's all I've ever dreamed of." "I'm glad to hear that. Let me introduce myself. My name is Cypress Whitlock. I thought that you kind of looked familiar. You're the guy from those reality shows, says Katie. Guilty, says Cypress. I'm actually getting ready to host a brand new show. A cooking show, to be exact. Let me ask, would you have any interest in being a contestant? Katie, trying to hold back anticipation, yells out, yes, I would love to have an opportunity to showcase my culinary abilities to the world. Cypress smiles at her. That's great to hear. I think you would make a perfect face to be a part of it. I haven't even told you the prize yet. For winning the competition, it's the biggest prize in the history of reality cooking show. The winner gets $1 million, and we will also be giving them their own restaurant, the location, the staff, everything else you would need for the first year to get started. Katie could not control her elation. This was it, the big break she needed. I need to be a contestant, Mr. Whitlock, she says. Katie would give her information to Cypress so the producers and the showrunners would be able to reach out to her. She would go home to that sickening apartment, and she'd dance around like she was Cinderella at the ball. Her dreams were about to come true. She started thinking of recipes and planning out everything to ensure that she would come out on top as champion. A few days had passed since meeting Cypress. Chef Otto came back to work the next day, and the kitchen lost its inspiring glow it had when Chef Katie was in charge. It went back to the dark pit of gloom that it normally was. Katie, however, was content with working because she knew that in a few days she'd be taking on some of the best chefs in the world for a chance to finally acquire a life that she felt she deserved. A week had passed, and Katie began to find a nervous pit in her stomach that she may have been lied to. She had not been reached out to. She checked her phone and email every 10 minutes in hopes that she would have details on the show. Nothing. 2 weeks passed, still nothing. After the third week, Katie still had no idea what happened. She started thinking maybe she dreamt the whole thing. She didn't have any way to reach out to anyone. She didn't even know what the name of the show was called. Down on her luck, she went to work every single day, each day getting more depressed at the thought that her ticket to life of luxury had expired. That was until one day when she had gotten off work and she made the long trip home. When she finally fell into her bed, her phone chirped. She had a new email. The email read, Dear Miss Thompson, we are glad to inform you that you have been selected to be a participant on a new reality cooking show set to air early next year. This program is to showcase the best chefs in the world. This show is set to start filming on Friday, so please make accommodations. You will be gone for at least 12 days, possibly more, depending on filming schedules. For this, because the cash prize is so big, there will be no compensation for appearing in the show. The winner will be the only one who receives any money. In other words, it's all or nothing. Attaches to your itinerary along with your flight ticket. Good luck, and we can't wait to watch your journey. Best wishes, Phil W., producer. Katie got the biggest whiff of relief anyone could have ever gotten, but it did come with a little worry. No compensation? Most shows give all the participants a little money just for showing up, but being paid nothing unless she wins? She would also be taking 2 weeks off of work, and she would be leaving in 2 days, meaning she could only give Otto a day's notice. She felt like this would not end well. If you do the show, you will never walk back in this restaurant again, said Chef Otto the next day after Katie broke the news to him. It is up to you. Either you be on this little show and lose immediately, or shut the hell up and start cooking like the little pissant chef you are. Katie was torn. She feared that losing her job meant that she would have to start over from scratch. Who knows what restaurant would let her cook in their kitchen? At the same time, this could be her big break. She was about to be on national television, and even if she lost, she had to put that on her resume. Surely there would be one executive chef out there that would be willing to bring her in. Plus, the thought of having her own restaurant if she wins would be her dream come true. Penne alla vodka, table 22, chef, now, screamed Chef Otto. He had been saying it for almost a minute straight while Chef Katie was having this dilemma in her head. Finally, Katie would respond quietly, I quit. Katie realized it would be better to start over than deal with this egotistical, lazy, monstrous human being. What did you say, Chef? Asked Chef Otto. I quit, Katie says a bit louder before screaming it back at Chef Otto. I quit, Chef. That's fine. Go lose your stupid competition, and when you come back with nothing, you can eat the scraps out of my dumpster. You were never good at cooking anyway. You don't deserve to be called a chef, he yells as she disappears down the stairs going into the subway station. The next day, Katie went to the airport, looked at her plane ticket, and was worried it was fake. What if it was all a prank and she have no more job, no show, nothing? The plane ticket looked legit. It said one-way ticket to Los Angeles on it. She got to the gate. It was the pearly gates to heaven. Her dream was on the other side of this. She just had to scan the ticket. If it lights up green, it's real, and she was on her way to LA. She slowly shows the phone to the ticket scanner, hand shaking, about to cry at the thought of how embarrassing it would be if it was fake. Finally, the scanner makes a buzzing noise. The screen lights up green, and Katie is walking on the plane and flying to Los Angeles. When Katie arrived in LA, she was greeted by a cab driver with a piece of paper with her name on it. She went to him, and he brought her to this older hotel that kind of looked abandoned. She began to second-guess herself. As the doors opened to the car, she looked out and saw the other participants arriving. They, without a second look, grabbed their bags and walked inside. Katie followed. Inside, there was a registration table, signing in all the competitors. She got up to the table, and they gave her a piece of paper to sign. It's all the normal stuff that everyone has to sign when they participate in a reality show, says the lady at the table. The document reads, Terms and Conditions. Eligibility and participation. Participants must be 18 years of age or older. Participants must comply with all rules and regulations set forth by the slice organizers. Assumption of risk. By signing this form, the participant acknowledges that they understand that the participation of the slice cooking competition involves inherent risk, including but not limited to cuts, burns, allergic reactions, and all other injuries associated with the show. The participants agree to assume all risk associated with participation in this competition. Release of liability. The slice cooking competitions, its organizers, sponsors, affiliates, and all employees shall not be held responsible or liable for injury, damages, or losses incurred during or as a result of participation in this competition. The participant agrees to release, discharge, and hold harmless the slice cooking competition and its affiliates from claim, actions, or liability arising from their participation. Prize and awards. The participant acknowledges that only the winner of the slice cooking competition will receive the prize of $1 million, as well as everything needed to start their own restaurant for 1 year. After 1 year, the winner will be responsible for anything that has to do with the restaurant. No other participants will receive any form of compensation or award, monetary or otherwise, for their participation. Use of likeness. The participant grants the slice cooking competition the right to use their name, likeness, voice, biographical information for promotional and marketing purposes in any media format without further compensation. Confidentiality. The participant agrees not to disclose any confidential information related to the competition, including but not limited to recipes, judging criteria, and competition results to any third parties. Compliance with rules. Participants agree to abide by all rules and regulations established by Sliced. Failure to comply may result in disqualification. Katie agrees and signs the document. She is handed a welcome bag and a new chef's jacket for the show and walks inside. She gets to her hotel room, which is much bigger than her apartment she rents in New York. It actually smells nice, the walls aren't peeling, no bugs, and it's a much-needed upgrade for what she's used to. An hour after arrival, all the competitors are called to the ballroom, where they will be holding the competition. When Katie arrives, she is mesmerized by what she sees. A brilliant set with 12 different cooking stations, and she is in awe of everything. The main cooking area was dominated by a massive wooden table resembling a grand feasting table from the medieval era. It was surrounded by high-tech cooking stations equipped with the latest appliances, seamlessly integrated into a rustic design. Each station had a countertop made of polished dark wood, and above it, a wrought iron pot rack holding an array of gleaming copper pots and pans. The judges' table, positioned at the front of the set, was an imposing structure carved from dark oak, with intricate designs of vines and mythical creatures. Behind the judges, a large banner bearing competition's crest, a stylized chef knife crossed with a spoon, a set against a backdrop of flames, hung proudly, symbolizing the culinary battle to be waged. The pantry, set into a recess of stone wall, was a sight to behold. It was filled with barrels, crates, and shelves overflowing with the finest ingredients from all around the world. Fresh herbs were displayed in clay pots, and spices were kept in glass jars, each carefully labeled. The overall look was both abundant and organized with a medieval market vibe. Standing in front was the host of the show, Cypress Whitlock. Next to him stood two tall men who were dressed in knight's armor and holding prop axes. The two men towered over Cypress and were very intimidating. Welcome to Sliced, a cooking show where you 12 participants will go to battle where only one can be the winner. With the other 11 will be sliced and go home with absolutely nothing, says Cypress. At this point, the guards start making their demonic laughing noises. Katie knew it was only for show, but it did make the hairs on her neck stand up. This is the most intense cooking competition the world has ever seen. The winner of the show will get $1 million and be given their own restaurant as well as everything needed to run and operate the restaurant for 1 year. All of the participants looked focused and ready to take on the challenge. Meanwhile, Katie was just smiling at everything that Cypress was saying. Now, let's meet the participants, Cypress says. Chef Isabel Martinez, age 29, born and raised in Mexico City, Isabel grew up immersed in vibrant flavors of her grandmother's kitchen. She moved to the U.S. to study culinary arts and has become a rising star in contemporary Mexican cuisine, blending traditional techniques with modern flair. Isabel's creativity and passion make her a tough competitor. Chef Patrick Callahan, age 32, raised in a family of Irish immigrants in Boston. Patrick grew up helping his parents' small pub, where he discovered his passion for cooking hearty, traditional meals. After culinary school, he traveled through Europe, honing his skills in various Michelin-starred restaurants. Chef Hiroshi Tanaka, age 41, a sushi master from Tokyo, Hiroshi began his career at his family's restaurant. His dedication to perfecting his craft led him to study under some of the greatest sushi chefs in Japan. Hiroshi's precision and meticulous attention to detail are unmatched, making him a respected but intimidating figure in the competition. Chef Angela Dupree, age 35, hailing from New Orleans, Angela's cooking is deeply influenced by rich, spicy flavors of Cajun and Creole cuisine. She runs a popular food truck that has been featured on numerous food shows. Angela's vivacious personality and bold flavors make her a crowd favorite. Chef Katie Thompson, age 30, from New York City. Katie was forced to cook from a young age by her father, but while the other kids were deterred by this, she fell in love with cooking, teaching herself flavors and cooking techniques that stand apart from others. She paid her way into culinary school and she landed a job at one of the top restaurants in all of the world, Lumineer, where she works as a sous chef alongside the famous Chef Otto Gannon. Chef Marco Rossi, age 28. Growing up in a small village in Italy, Marco learned the art of pasta making from his grandmother. After moving to the U.S., he worked his way up in various restaurants. Marco's rustic, home-style Italian dishes are packed with authenticity and heart, earning him a loyal following. Chef Li Na, age 30. Li Na comes from a long line of chefs in Shanghai. She specializes in modern Chinese fusion, combining traditional flavors with contemporary techniques. Her innovative approach and artistic presentation make her a standout in this competition. Chef Raj Patel, age 37. Born in Mumbai, Raj moved to London to pursue his culinary dreams. He is known for his mastery of Indian cuisine and his ability to blend spices in a way to create unforgettable dishes. Raj's disciplined approach and intense focus are his greatest assets in this competition. Chef Emily Harper, age 25. Emily is a self-taught baker from a small town in Vermont. She took over her parents' bakery at the age of 22, gaining local fame for her inventive pastries and desserts. Emily's sweet and friendly demeanor hides a fiercely competitive streak, particularly when it comes to baking challenges. Chef Tomas Silva, age 34. Originally from Brazil, Tomas grew up helping his family run a churrascaria. His expertise in grilling and barbecuing, combined with his flair for incorporating tropical fruits and exotic ingredients, give him a unique edge. Tomas's easygoing nature makes him well-liked amongst his peers. Chef Aisha Khan, age 31. Aisha, born in Morocco and moved to Paris to study at one of the world's most prestigious culinary schools. She specializes in French-Moroccan fusion, creating dishes that are both exotic and elegant. Aisha's refined palate and sophisticated techniques makes her a formidable competitor. Finally, Chef Driscoll Vance, age 38. Driscoll hails from a wealthy New York family and attended one of the finest culinary schools from a young age. He built his reputation in the cutthroat world of haute cuisine, earning accolades but also a reputation for his ruthless ambition and willingness to undermine competitors. His sharp-tongued critiques and underhanded tactics make him a formidable antagonist for the competition. Now that we have met our opponents for the next few weeks, it's time to start our first competition, explained Cypress. It's a simple competition, but crucial. You will all be making your own signature dish. No chains and shackles, just show the judges who you are and what sets you apart in this competition. Now you have 1 hour and your time starts now. With that, the competition was underway. The clangs of pots and pans and hum of appliances filled the air as the chefs sprang into action, each working with a determined focus to create a dish that represented their culinary identity. Katie, at her station, moved with confident precision. She had chosen to make her truffle-infused lobster bisque, a dish that had won the hearts of many diners at the Lumiere. As she carefully chopped onions and celery, the aroma of fresh ingredients began to fill her station. She reached for the lobster, expertly breaking it down and setting aside the shell for her bisque base. To her right, Chef Patrick was preparing his signature Irish stew with a modern twist, his station a flurry of activity as he diced lamb and vegetables with practiced ease. On her left, Chef Driscoll was meticulously arranging ingredients for his elaborate foie gras terrain. His eyes occasionally flickered over to Katie's station with a look of calculated interest. Katie moved on to her truffle oil, a secret blend that she had perfected over years of experimentation. As the bisque simmered, she added the truffle essence, its rich, earthy scent mingling with the sweet aroma of the lobster. She tasted the broth, adjusting the seasoning with a satisfied nod. Everything was going smoothly. Around her, the competition was fierce. Chef Isabella was busy blending traditional spices for her mole sauce, while Chef Hiroshi's station was steady in precision as he prepared delicate sushi rolls. The variety of aromas from different cuisines made the studio feel like a global marketplace. Halfway through the competition, the host called out updates, urging the chefs to keep an eye on the clock. Katie remained calm, her bisque reducing to a perfect consistency. She strained the mixture, ensuring the silky smooth texture, and then began preparing her presentation. With 5 minutes left, Katie started plating. She ladled a velvety bisque into an elegant bowl, adding a swirl of cream and a drizzle of truffle oil. She garnished each bowl with a few chive blossoms and a sprinkle of freshly cracked pepper. The final touch was a perfectly cooked lobster claw, perched delicately on the edge of each bowl. As the clock ticked down to the final seconds, the chefs hurried and put the final finishing touches on their dishes. The host counted down the last 10 seconds and then, with a dramatic flourish, called out, "Time's up. Step away from your stations." The judges, a trio of renowned culinary experts, began their rounds. They moved from station to station, sampling dishes and discussing the chef's techniques and flavors. Katie watched with a mix of excitement and nerves as they approached her. The head judge, a stern yet fair chef known for his discerning palate, took a spoonful of her bisque. His expression softened as he tasted, savoring the complex layers of flavor. "The balance of truffle and lobster is exquisite," he remarked, nodding approvingly. The other judges echoed his sentiments, praising her for her dish depth and elegance. As the judges continued their evaluations, Katie felt a wave of relief and pride. She had delivered her best, and it had paid off. Around her, other chefs were receiving their critiques, with Chef Driscoll looking particularly pleased with the feedbacks of his food, while Chef Patrick's modern Irish stew garnered warm praise for its innovative take on a classic. Cypress called the chefs to the front of the set. "Chefs, you've all impressed us with your signature dishes. However, only one of you can be named the winner of this round." He paused, building suspense. And the chef whose dish who stood out the most is Chef Katie, for her truffle-infused lobster bisque. Katie's heart soared as her name was called. She stepped forward, receiving a round of applause from the fellow competitors. Chef Patrick gave her an encouraging nod, while Chef Driscoll's smile was tight and calculated. "Congratulations, Chef Katie," said Cypress. "You've set the bar high for the rest of the competition." Katie couldn't help but smile. This victory was a small step towards proving her worth and breaking free from the shadows. The competition had only just begun, and she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. But now we must talk about the bottom two, Cypress said. Unfortunately, the judges feel that 2 chefs didn't exceed tonight, and one will no longer be with us. The 2 chefs are Chef Emily and Chef Angela. The head judge began speaking. Chef Angela, we felt that your fried oyster po' boy was just not what we want in this competition. I get that that's who you are, and yes, the flavors was surprisingly good, but these are the top chefs in the entire world, and bringing a po' boy is not screaming gourmet. Chef Angela was visibly worried as she started tearing up. I promise to bring better dishes for the rest of the competition. The flavor is right. I promise to incorporate it in more gourmet meals, says Chef Angela. Now for Chef Emily, the judge says. You are this top-notch baker who is wowing the entire Northeast with your pastries. But I can say these cannolis are not worth feeding to my dog. There's a reason why your shop is in the middle of nowhere, Vermont. It's not a real city. It's because you don't have what it takes. There's no question here. You have been sliced. Emily dropped to the floor, and Chef Angela helped pick her back up and hugged her, the terrible feeling that Emily's dreams were crushed right in front of us. The judges seemed so rude to her. They didn't even let her plead her case like they did with Angela. Oh, poor dear. I'm sorry, says Cypress. Chef Emily, you have been sliced. Guards, please remove Emily from this competition. The guards then walk up to Emily, one on each side of her. Emily, wiping tears away from her eyes, says, I'm sorry, judges. The guards then raise their prop axes and whip them towards Emily at an alarming rate. The other competitors watch as blood splattered over their jackets and Emily's head and torso were laying separated on the ground. Sliced. Chapter 2. The silence in the room could speak for days. What did we just witness? Was it a mistake? Was it CGI? Screams began filling the set as everyone finally processed what was happening. People throwing up in the anxiety of just witnessing a murder right in front of their own eyes. What did we just sign up for? Then the guards grabbed their towels and cleaned off their axes and did the demonic laugh from earlier. After a moment, some of the participants began running towards the entrance in hopes of running away. Everyone quickly followed, realizing this was on purpose. This would end up being all of their fates. They made it to the lobby as quickly as they could, only to realize the doors were locked and they could not get out. Some others saw this and ran for the rooms where there were windows, only to discover that while the competition was going on, the windows were boarded up and bars were added in front of them, meaning there was no escape. They were stuck there for as long as they were alive. Everyone ended back in the lobby, frantically looking for Cypress to give some answers. Cypress, what is going on? Asked Katie. You all, I'm sorry. I was unaware of the punishment for losing the show prior to this morning. Apparently, the producers needed something to spice up the show and set them apart from other cooking shows, he explained. Spice up the show? Asked Aisha. Spicing up the show would be like making us only cook intestines or something, not killing off the loser. I understand, said Cypress. I don't make the rules, though. I'm just a paid host. I don't have a say in what happens. I just follow the cue cards. Cypress, you've got to put a stop to this. I have a family, says Raj. I will talk to the producers and see what I can do, but honestly, they seem to really like this idea. The executives are on board at the network, and I don't think there's much I can do. Cypress says in a sad tone. The best thing to do is prepare yourself for the next competition tomorrow. The longer you survive here, the better chance I have to tell the producers to shut the show down. What if we all just agree not to participate? Asked Patrick, with everyone in agreement. That'll be one bloody day, says Cypress. And come again? Asked Patrick. You see, you signed a form saying that you must abide by the rules of the game. The rules of the game are that you participate in all competitions. Anyone who loses the game must be forced to endure a punishment, which in this case is death. Leaving the game early or not participating in the competition results in disqualification, which leads to death, Cypress reiterated. That was it. Of the 11 people remaining in the competition, only one would be alive by the end of it. Most of the participants were distraught and began sobbing at the thought of never seeing their families again. All except for Driscoll, who began walking off. Chef Driscoll, where are you going? Asked Katie. I'm going to my room to get a good night's sleep. I don't need to worry about the competition because I'm going to win. So the rest of you should be worried because this sliced will be the death of you, says Driscoll. Now, if you will leave me alone, I need to plan out my restaurant. Driscoll walked off, and the rest of the competitors were consoling each other, trying to cheer everyone up. This was an impossible task, knowing death would be in the near future for most of these young chefs. Everyone walked with each other down the hall where the rooms were. Katie went into her room and found herself wishing to be in that rotten apartment in Brownsville. She wanted nothing more than to walk through the doors of the Lumineer and hear Chef Otto screaming at her that the soup was too dry or something stupid that he was on about that day. She knew those days were now gone. Katie would take a long hot shower in her private room, which felt as lonely as ever. She wished in that moment to be in that shared bathroom where the lock didn't work and random neighbors would always be walking in, stinking up the bathroom while she was trapped in the shower until they were done. Those days she wanted so badly to get rid of were now a fever dream of what she wished she had back. Katie lays in her bed weeping at the thought of this room and this hotel would be the end of her life. She would never see the sun ever again. As she was weeping, she could hear a voice come from above. "Need to talk to someone?" the voice said. "Who is this? Where are you?" says Katie, still crying. It's Patrick. Sorry for eavesdropping. The vents are connecting our rooms. I guess we can hear each other." "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you," says Katie. "No worries at all," says Patrick. "I should be the one that's going to be sorry. I snore like a werewolf, so hopefully I don't keep you up tonight." Katie chuckles a little bit. "It's okay. I'm just horrified with what we saw. Emily just died and she didn't even see it coming." Katie began crying even harder now. "It's okay. I'm sure when the producers watch what happened tonight, they will put a stop to the show and we can all go home," Patrick wished. "Also, if you need a tissue, they're in the cabinet in the nightstand." Katie checked the nightstand drawer, and sure enough, there was a fresh box. "Thank you, Patrick," said Katie. For the next couple hours, Katie and Patrick were talking and learning about each other. It is what both of them needed, as it kept their mind off of the current situation. Finally, while in the middle of talking, Katie stopped abruptly. Patrick could hear sleep breathing happening on the other side of the vent. Patrick followed and went to bed himself. Katie, even just for a few hours, felt okay. Patrick made her feel safe, and now she was relieved to have him as a neighbor for her time on the show. The therapy would only help for a few hours until the alarm went off and it was time to start the second competition of Sliced. "I'm really hoping they cancel the show. How can a national TV station get away with this?" Katie asked Patrick while they were prepared to head to the set. "They have to shut it down. Murder's illegal and no piece of paper that we signed makes it okay," explained Patrick. All participants head down. They see Cypress next to the guards and the judges behind them. "Cypress, tell us the producers canceled the show," asked Chef Raj. "I do have very good news I want you all to hear," Cypress says with enthusiasm. "The network has decided that the winner will now receive 2 years of everything they need to run their own restaurant. That's the mortgage, the staff, all the utensils, dishes, food, everything you need for 2 years instead of 1. "So we still die when we lose?" asked Katie. "Yes," says Cypress with excitement because he thought they were going to be enthused by the news. The participants looked shocked to see that the network thought it was a fair trade that 11 people had to die for one person to win 2 years of their own restaurant. Meanwhile, Driscoll looked unconcerned as he sharpens his knife for the competition. At this point, Katie and Patrick looked at each other and realized there's nothing they could have done except cook. The tension in the air was palpable as the 11 remaining chefs assembled once again in the grand medieval-themed kitchen. Cypress, with his usual flair, stepped forward to announce the second round of Sliced. "Welcome back, chefs. For your next challenge, you will be working with a staple ingredient, chicken. You must create a dish that showcases your creativity and technical skill, using chicken as the main ingredient. You'll have 60 minutes. Your time starts now." The chefs sprang into action, their minds racing with ideas as they rushed to their station. Katie had decided on a dish that had always been a crowd pleaser at the Lumineer. Herb-crusted chicken breast with an asparagus cream sauce accompanied by roasted vegetables and a delicate mushroom risotto. She began prepping her ingredients with precision and confidence. At the next station, Chef Driscoll was meticulously preparing his ingredients for a chicken roulade stuffed with wild mushrooms. His eyes occasionally flicked over at Katie's station, a glint of mischief in his gaze. Nearby, Chef Angela was busy marinating her chicken for a spicy Cajun dish, her movement brisk and efficient. As Katie worked, she realized she had forgotten a crucial ingredient for her sauce, fresh thyme. She hurried to the pantry, her mind focused on finding the herb quickly. Meanwhile, Chef Driscoll saw his opportunity and walked up to Chef Angela. "Hey, Angela," he whispered, leaning in close. "I think Katie's getting a bit too comfortable at the top." How about we shake things up a bit? Just a pinch more salt in her dish could make all the difference. Angela hesitated, glancing over at Katie's empty station. I don't know, Driscoll. That seems a bit too much. Think about it, Driscoll urged. It's a competition. Only one of us can win, and she's clearly a threat. You were at the bottom last round. One more slip-up and you'll end up like Emily. With a conflicted look, Angela nodded reluctantly. As Katie returned from the pantry, Angela quickly moved to Katie's station and sprinkled a generous amount of salt into her simmering sauce before hurrying back to her own station. Katie resumed her cooking. Oblivious to the sabotage, she seasoned chicken breasts with a fresh blend of herb and spices, then seared them to golden brown perfection. As the aroma of roasted chicken filled the air, she felt a sense of calm and focus. She plated her dish meticulously, drizzling the sauce over the chicken and adding the final touches to her mushroom risotto and roasted vegetables. Time's up. Step away from your stations. The judges began their rounds, tasting each dish with discerning eyes and critical palates. Katie watched anxiously as they approached her station, hoping they would appreciate her efforts despite the unknown sabotage. The head judge took a bite of her chicken and immediately paused, his expression tightening. The chicken is cooked beautifully, but this sauce is overwhelmingly salty. It shadows over all the other flavors. Katie's heart sank as the other judges nodded in agreement. She couldn't understand what had gone wrong. Her sauce had never turned out that way before. Finally, the host called the chefs to the front. There's a clear-cut favorite for today's meal. The winner, by an overwhelmingly amount, is Chef Driscoll. Driscoll looked with a grin at his enemies, knowing he was about to take out a top competitor. Chefs, you all put forth a tremendous effort, but two of you fell short today. Katie and Angela, please step forward, says Cypress. Katie felt a wave of dread as she stepped up beside Angela. The judge looked at both of them with a serious expression. Katie, your dish had potential, but the excessive salt in your sauce made it almost inedible. It was a complete 180 from the last round, and it's probably what is going to have you sliced tonight. He paused for a dramatic effect, then continued. However, Angela, your chicken was raw and not able to be eaten, leaving us no choice but to eliminate you from the competition. Katie let out a breath that she hadn't realized she had been holding in. Katie glanced at Driscoll, who had gave her a smug, knowing look, realizing what must have happened. She felt a mix of anger and determination. She had narrowly escaped elimination, but she knew she had to be more vigilant. The competition was only getting tougher, and she couldn't afford any more mistakes. Chef Angela, I'm so sorry about this, but you have been sliced. Guards, remove her from the competition. And the world, for that matter, said Cypress, with what little pity you could use in that statement. Angela attempted to run away, but that got her nowhere. The doors to the set were locked, and there was no escape. The competitors were unable to watch as Angela screamed out for help. She was dodging the guards, but one had pulled out a small blade and sliced a tendon in the back of her knee, paralyzing her, before finally the guards raised their axes and cut right through her head and torso. The tears began to flow, as they did in the first round, from everyone except for Driscoll, who had a sinister look on his face. 2 down, 10 are left. Who will remain at the end of the biggest prize in cooking competition history? Find out next time on Sliced, Cypress says as they close out the show.
Sliced, Chapter 3. After the end of Episode 2, the competitors went back to their hotel rooms. Katie and Patrick began debriefing everything that had just transpired. Driscoll had to have something to do with it, right? Asked Katie. He looked at me with the most menacing grin after they mentioned my dish being too salty. And after Angela got eliminated, he seemed so surprised. I know there wasn't too much salt in the dish. I've made it so many times. That's what I'm thinking. I didn't see him go around your station, but I know he was whispering something to Angela while you stepped away, said Patrick. It's so messed up. You're playing with somebody's life, said Katie, as she broke down once again. I was almost killed today. I should have been if it wasn't for her raw chicken. Patrick consoled Katie through the vents in their room. This became a nightly thing as they would go to their rooms after each round. It was the only way that Katie or Patrick could keep whatever sanity they had left. Over the next few rounds, Katie would not leave her station. Driscoll would constantly be looking at Katie out of the corner of his eye, waiting for his chance to slip in and get her eliminated once and for all. That time never came, though, as Katie would not let her guard down anymore. This did not stop Driscoll from getting rid of some of the other competitors. He would sabotage each opponent one by one each round. Katie and Patrick would try to stop it, but each time Driscoll was able to sabotage enough to get his target killed. The third person eliminated was Marco, who was eliminated after Driscoll spilt oil over his station, causing a fire on the set that was quickly put out, but too late for Marco to start over. He was sliced. Fourth was Hiroshi, who had his hand cut due to a knife being placed by Driscoll without Hiroshi noticing. He cut his hand too deep, and he had to receive medical attention. By the time they got the bleeding under control, the time had expired, and Hiroshi was murdered. Fifth was Isabella. After Driscoll did his salt trick once again, Katie and Patrick told Isabella, but once again it was too late for her to fix it, and her life was over. Aisha, Lee, and Tomas were next, all due to sabotages of Driscoll, all their lives being perished one by one. Each elimination harder than the next, knowing it didn't matter about the cooking. Driscoll was cheating. Katie tried to explain to the judges what was happening. They just shrugged it off. This game is life or death. We don't expect people to play fair, Cypress explained. It had seemed that Cypress had given up at this point too. I would even venture to say he was enjoying it, making it feel like he never talked to any of the producers or felt bad for the contestants losing their lives. When we made it down to the final four, Raj ended up getting eliminated. This death was the hardest yet. Raj was a family man, and now what was going to happen? His wife and kids were so proud of the dad who was chasing his dreams on his cooking show. Now he was going to perish. "Can I speak to my wife and kids one more time, sir?" Raj begged. "I won't say anything about the show. I just want to hear them speak one final time." "Chef Raj, you know we can't do that. You signed an NDA, and you telling them would break that," said Cypress. "Don't you think me not showing up at home will be enough for them?" he explained. "Alright, he's making too much sense, and this is getting too sad. Guards, execute," ordered Cypress. Raj didn't run. He just fell to his knees and accepted his fate. "Whoever wins, please let my family know I love them," cried out Chef Raj as he was brought to an end. That night, the hotel rooms were silent. Katie and Patrick didn't speak much, partially because they were so shattered by the events that had taken place tonight with Raj, as well as all the previous eliminations. Also, partially due to the fact that the competition was down to just 3 competitors. "Tomorrow's a big day, isn't it?" says Patrick, breaking the hours of silence. "I don't want this anymore," cries out Katie. "I just want this to be over." Katie had depressing thoughts go through her mind. She thought maybe she would just not show up tomorrow. If they kill her, it's probably how it was going to end up anyway. She didn't want her life to end, but she didn't have a whole lot of choices. She also didn't want Patrick to die either. He was all that she had in this abandoned hotel. She had developed feelings for this man on the other side of the wall. Knowing there was a 66% chance that one of them would die tomorrow made her feel nauseous. "We just need to make sure we beat Driscoll tomorrow," says Patrick. "But after that, it's just you and me," says Katie. They would not speak again for the rest of the night, even though both laid awake until the alarm sounded and they had to go downstairs for the second to last competition. The atmosphere in the grand medieval kitchen was silent as ever as the 3 remaining chefs took their place in the penultimate round of the sliced. Katie, Driscoll, and Patrick exchanged tense glances, knowing that only 2 would advance to the final round. Cypress, exuding his usual charismatic energy, stepped forward to announce the challenge. "Chefs, congratulations on making it this far. For this round, you will have 1 hour to create a dessert that'll dazzle the judges. This is now your chance to showcase your creativity and finesse. Your time starts now." The chefs sprang into action. Katie had decided on a delicate raspberry souffle with white chocolate sauce, a dessert that combined her technical skills with an elegant presentation. She quickly began preparing her ingredients, her as perfect as ever before. This was a natural instinct for her. She was born to cook. Driscoll, ever the schemer, opted for a deconstructed tiramisu. As he worked, he kept a watchful eye on Katie and Patrick, looking for any opportunity to disrupt their progress. Meanwhile, Patrick had chosen to make a lemon meringue tart, a dessert that was always a crowd pleaser back in his family pub in Boston. As the clock ticked down, the intensity of the kitchen ramped up. Katie whisked her egg whites to stiff peaks, carefully folding them into her raspberry mixture before pouring them into the ramekins. She glanced over at Patrick, who seemed to be struggling with his tart crust. "How's it going, Patrick?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. Patrick shook his head, frustration etched across his face. "I can't get the crust to set properly. It keeps falling apart." "Hang in there," Katie encouraged. "You can do this." Katie began to worry about Patrick. Meanwhile, Driscoll smirked as he overheard their conversation. He casually sauntered over to Patrick's station, pretending he needed something from the nearby pantry. "Everything okay in here, Patrick?" he asked with a faux concern. Patrick didn't look up. Just having some trouble with the crust. Driscoll eyed Patrick's ingredients, a devious plan forming in his mind. He waited for a moment when Patrick was distracted, then suddenly adjusted the temperature on Patrick's oven, hoping to throw off his baking time. Katie, focused on her souffle, noticed Driscoll's movement out of the corner of her eye. She quickly finished her preparation and placed her souffles in the oven. With a wary glance at Driscoll, she whispered to Patrick, "Double-check your oven temperature, just in case." Patrick looked puzzled, but did as she suggested, his eyes widening as he saw the altered setting. "Thanks, Katie," he murmured, readjusting his temperature and hoping it wasn't too late. Driscoll, realizing his plan had been busted, cursed under his breath and returned to his station. He decided to concentrate on his own dish, determined to outperform the competitors fairly if he couldn't sabotage them. With only 15 minutes left, the kitchen was a whirlwind of activity. Katie removed her souffle from the oven, breathing a sigh of relief as they rose perfectly. She began preparing the white chocolate sauce, her hand steady despite the high stakes. Patrick, still struggling, managed to salvage his tart crust, but found himself running out of time to perfect the meringue. His anxiety was palpable as he whipped the egg whites, trying to achieve the right consistency. "This isn't working," he muttered, panic creeping into his voice. Katie felt a pang of sympathy for her friend, but knew she had to stay focused. She played in her souffle, adding a dusting of powdered sugar and a drizzle of white chocolate sauce. As she stepped back to admire her work, she couldn't help but feel a mix of satisfaction and worry for Patrick. The final seconds ticked down, and the host's voice rang out. "Time's up. Step away from your station." The judges began their rounds, starting with Driscoll. They sampled his deconstructed tiramisu, nodding approvingly at his presentation and the balanced flavors. Next, they moved to Katie, who watched with scared breath as they tasted her raspberry souffle. "Exquisite," one judge remarked. "The souffle is light and airy, and the white chocolate sauce complements it beautifully." Finally, they arrived at Patrick's station. His lemon meringue tart looked rushed, and the judges took a bite. Their expression revealed the verdict. "The crust is undercooked, the meringue is weeping," one judge said gently. The host called the chefs to the front. "Chefs, you have all put forth an incredible effort, but only 2 of you can reach the final round. Katie, your souffle was outstanding. Driscoll, your tiramisu impressed the judges. Patrick, unfortunately, your tart fell short of the mark." Patrick's shoulders slumped, a look of resignation on his face. "I gave it my best shot," he said quietly, with a tear starting to fall from his eye. Katie felt a pang of sadness for her friend, but also a surge of relief that she had made it through. She stepped forward to hug Patrick. "You've got to put a stop to this. This is murder. I won't let you kill him." "Katie, it's okay. It's no use. We've tried that for 2 weeks, and they're not stopping," said Patrick. "We cannot run. We cannot hide. One day death will reach us all. It's messed up that they're speed running our lives, but there's nothing we can do now. It's a cooking show after all. I'm just the next voted off." "What do I do now?" asked Katie. "Go win this thing," Patrick replied with a weak smile before the guards dropped their axes on Patrick, bringing his story to a sad ending. As Cypress congratulated Katie and Driscoll, the final 2 competitors, Katie couldn't help but stand there feeling ashamed, wishing she could be anywhere but here. She was now 1 meal away from achieving her goals and dreams, but all she had wished for now was going to be the epitome of who she was. Katie went back to her room in silence, wishing Patrick would just say something, but the room was quiet. Katie was now alone. Sliced, Chapter 4. Katie didn't remember falling asleep that night, but she must have because she was woken up to one final alarm ringing, letting the final 2 remaining participants know it was time for the final challenge. Katie woke up with no feeling, no emotions, nothing. She sat and stared at the ceiling, and was content with waiting for those beefy men to walk in with their axes and kill her right there in that bed. However, Katie decided against this. She told herself, cooking is what you love, and if you're gonna die, might as well die doing what you love. She put her chef jacket on one final time and head downstairs. "Chefs, congratulations on making it to the final round," Cypress congratulates. "For your final challenge, you will prepare a 3-course meal, an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert. You have 2 hours. This is your final chance to leave everything on the plate and show us what you truly are capable of. Your time starts now." Katie felt a mixture of exhaustion and determination as she began to prep. The competition had taken its toll, and she felt emotionally drained, but she was resolved to finish strong. She decided a trio of dishes that would showcase her skills in culinary creativity. For the appetizer, a seared scallop with citrus fennel salad. For the entree, a rack of lamb with rosemary and garlic, accompanied by a truffle mashed potato and asparagus. And for dessert, a chocolate hazelnut torte with raspberry coulis. Driscoll had planned an ambitious menu. For the appetizer, foie gras with a fig reduction. For the entree, a sous vide duck breast with a cherry glaze, served with wild rice and broccolini. And for dessert, a lemon meringue tart, which he claimed was in honor of Patrick since the bonehead Irish self was unable to do it correctly. As the clock started, Katie moved with mechanical precision, her face a mask of concentration. She started with a scallop, carefully cleaning and preparing them before setting them aside. Next, she began working on the lamb, methodically seasoning and searing the meat before placing it in the oven. She worked on her mashed potatoes, infusing them with truffle oil for an added layer of luxury. Driscoll, meanwhile, was keeping one eye on his dish and the other on Katie, looking for opportunities to disrupt her progress. He attempted to nudge her scallops off the counter while passing by, but Katie caught them just in time, giving him a steely look. Katie just gave the look of, "Really?" to Driscoll. She could not believe he was still trying to sabotage the game. "Just keeping things interesting," Driscoll replied with a smirk, returning to his station. Katie continued to deflect Driscoll's attempts to sabotage her. When he accidentally knocked over her container of truffle oil, she calmly retrieved another bottle from the pantry. When he tried to crank up the heat on her oven, she caught it and reset it without missing a beat. The first hour flew by, and the judges walked by observing the chef's progress. Katie's appetizer came together beautifully, the seared scallop perfectly caramelized and paired with a refreshing citrus fennel salad. Driscoll's foie gras looked equally impressive, though his constant side-eye at Katie's station was noticed by the judges. As the second hour ticked by, Katie focused on her entree. The lamb was resting, the truffle mashed potatoes was creamy and smooth, and the asparagus was blanched to perfection. She began plating with the same mechanical precision, her mind slowly focused on the task at hand. Driscoll, growing increasingly frustrated with his failed attempts at sabotage, decided to focus entirely on his own dish. His sous vide duck breast was cooked perfectly, and he meticulously plated it with a cherry glaze, wild rice, and broccolini. With 20 minutes left, the desserts began. Katie worked swiftly on her chocolate hazelnut torte, melting the chocolate and preparing the hazelnut crust. Driscoll, meanwhile, assembled the lemon meringue tart, the components laid out artfully on the plate. As the final seconds ticked down, both chefs were exhausted, evident on their faces. The host called out, "Time's up, step away from your stations." The judges began with the appetizers. Katie's seared scallop was praised for the perfect execution and harmonious flavors. Driscoll's foie gras received high marks for its richness and sweetness of the fig reduction. Next, they moved into entrees. Katie's lack of ram was triumphant, the meat tender and flavorful, complemented perfectly by the truffle mashed potatoes and asparagus. Driscoll's duck breast was also impressive, the cherry glaze providing a delightful contrast into the savory meat. Finally, the judges tasted dessert. Katie's chocolate hazelnut torte was a decadent end to her meal, the richness of chocolate balanced with the tartness of raspberry coulis. Driscoll's lemon meringue tart was visually stunning and full of bright, zesty flavors. Driscoll felt like he had it in the bag. His smile was as big as the earth was long, confident that he would win this contest, until one judge comment made his world crash down. "Chef Driscoll, your tart crust is undercooked. I'd say even more undercooked than Patrick's from last round. I thought his was bad. This was very poorly executed lemon meringue tart." The judges deliberated, their expressions serious as they weighed the strengths of each meal. The host called Katie and Driscoll to the front of the set. "Chefs, you both delivered exceptional three-course meals. The decision was incredibly difficult, but there can only be one winner. The chef who will be crowned the sliced champion is Chef Katie." Katie felt a wave of relief and pride wash over her. She had done it. Despite the exhaustion, the sabotage attempts, and the intense pressure, she had come out on top. Driscoll's face fell, but he forced a smile and extended his hand to Katie. "Congratulations, Katie. Well deserved." Cypress stepped forward, holding up Katie's hand in victory. "Congratulations, Chef Katie. You are the slice champion." Katie was handed the check for $1 million. She wanted to smile, but out of the corner of her eyes, she watched as the final victim was executed. Driscoll took his final breath as his head rolled on the floor in front of Katie. "Does this mean I get to go home now?" asked Katie. Laughing at the comment, Cypress asked Katie, "What about the restaurant? Aren't you wanting to go plan that?"
At this point, Katie just wants to be back in that Brownsville apartment. She would give the money back just to go see the sun once more and walk away free. You see, Katie, there is one more thing to this competition that we've been hiding, Cypress said in a devious way. You are the Slice champion, and you have won the $1 million. If you want the restaurant as well as to leave here alive, you have one final competition. Katie's eyes widened as she thought it was over. She could go home. What else could they possibly have planned? Katie, to win, you have to make one more meal. You will be facing off against someone who holds much higher regards in the culinary world than just Slice champion, states Cypress. You will be facing off against one of the greatest chefs to ever grace the universe, as well as one of the head producers of this show, Chef Otto Gannon. The air thickened to the point that Katie couldn't breathe as from behind the curtain, Chef Otto Gannon walked out. The man who made her life hell the past 5 years was the man who decided if she will live past an hour from now or not. Not only that, but the man who screamed at her and made her feel inferior to any other chef in the world was the man who was behind the whole show. The man who held her back in life is the one who holds the keys to her success. Katie thought about grabbing the butcher knife that was just a few feet away and slicing his head off, but Katie thought better of it. She knows what he's about. He's not a real chef. He's a statue, a puppet, a public figure who takes all the glory from someone else's work. Katie was going to beat him at his own game. Welcome to the ultimate cook-off, explained Cypress. In a surprising twist, our champion, Chef Katie, will now face off against the renowned Chef Otto Gannon. The challenge is simple. Create a dish that showcases your culinary expertise. You have 1 hour, and your time starts now. Katie felt a surge of determination as she began to prep. She had decided on her dish that showcased her skills and creativity. A deconstructed beef Wellington with a red wine reduction and a side of roasted Brussels sprouts with a raspberry and cranberry reduction. She worked with precision and focus that had brought her this far, blocking out the pressure and presence of her former boss. Otto, with his charismatic arrogance, had chosen a dish he believed would secure his victory, a gourmet chicken roulade stuffed with wild mushrooms and spinach. Served with a saffron risotto and a delicate asparagus salad, he moved with an air of confidence, fully expecting to dominate the competition. As the clock ticked down, Katie expertly seared her beef, ensuring the perfect crust before wrapping in the prosciutto and puff pastry. She began working on her sides, reducing the raspberry and cranberries while seasoning her Brussels sprouts perfectly. Otto, meanwhile, focused on his chicken roulade, rolling the chicken breast with mushroom and spinach filling before securing them and placing them in the oven. He frequently glazed over at Katie, his expression a mix of disdain and irritation. Despite the pressure, Katie remained composed. She plated her beef Wellington with an artistic flair, the pastry golden and flaky, the beef tender and perfectly cooked. Her Brussels sprouts were roasted beautifully and aromatic, and the reduction added a rich, flavorful finish. Otto, however, was growing increasingly frustrated as the clock winded down. In his haste, he failed to notice that his chicken roulade was undercooked. He hurried and plated the dish, hoping the presentation would distract from the culinary error. The judges, renowned chefs with discerning palates, approached the station to taste the final dishes. They began with Katie, who watched anxiously as they sampled her beef Wellington. The beef is cooked to perfection, one judge remarked. The flavors are balanced beautifully, and the presentation is stunning. Another judge nodded in agreement. These Brussels sprouts are divine, and the reduction ties the dish together wonderfully. Katie felt a surge of pride and relief. She had done her best, and the judges were impressed. Next, the judges moved to Otto's station. They cut into the chicken roulade, immediately noticing the pink center. One judge raised an eyebrow. "His chicken is undercooked," he said, pushing the plate away. "This is a serious flaw." Despite the critical error, the judges' expression remained unreadable as they deliberated. The host called the chefs to the front for the final verdict. Katie knew that she was going to win this. She just embarrassed the Chef Otto Gannon on national TV. Her life would be saved. However, she seemed concerned with the look that Otto was giving. "Chefs, you both presented your best efforts in this ultimate cook-off. However, only one can be the grand prize winner. Katie held her breath, anticipation and hope mingling with the fatigue of the competition. And the winner is Chef Otto Gannon. Katie's heart sank. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. It is as if time had stopped. The judges had clearly noted the raw chicken, yet Otto was declared the winner. The reality hit her hard. The competition was rigged. She stepped forward, unable to contain her anger and frustration. This is ridiculous. Otto's chicken was raw. Everyone saw it. This competition is a sham. Chef Katie, please, let's keep things civil, said Cypress. Take your loss with some dignity. He is Chef Otto Gannon, after all. I think a loss to him isn't that big of a blemish. No, this is not fair, Katie continued, her voice shaking with emotion. I've worked too hard to be cheated like this. The whole thing is rigged and everyone deserves to know. Otto smirked, clearly enjoying the outburst. Calm down, Katie. It's just a competition. But Katie refused to back down. It's not just a competition, it's my life on the line. You get to go home tonight and enjoy the penthouse view of Manhattan. You get your life of luxury. You get to go to your restaurant tomorrow without even thinking about how my body is going to be hitting the floor in a minute. Katie, let's calm down. Everything will be over soon, said Cypress. Screw you, Cypress. You knew this whole time what this was, didn't you? Asked Katie. All the way back at the train station, you knew how this was going to end. It was never a competition. It was a way for the rich to laugh at 12 chefs who were fighting for their dreams, only to find out their dreams would never be reality. Enough, screamed Otto. Guards, kill her. The guards started moving towards Katie. Katie starts to run. She makes it to the front door, but just as all the other times she checks, it's boarded up and locked with a gate. She runs to her room with an idea. She closes her door, hoping the guards saw her. She goes into the vent that leads into Patrick's room and tries to pry it off. She pulls with all her might, hoping it will pop loose. Finally, it does. Katie climbs through the vent to go to the other side. She tries to put the gate back so the guards don't notice. She does it, just in time as the guards plow the door down. Katie watches as they search the room. Katie sits down on the bed and tries to plan her next move. She is still trapped. At this time, Patrick's door clicked. The weight came crashing down on Katie as she turned around to see the door slowly opening. When the door opened, there stood Otto Gannon. Katie, my naive Katie, you fell right into my trap, says Otto. How did you know I was in here? Katie starts to scream for help, knowing there's no hope. Katie, all those late night conversations with Patrick, was that his name? Who cares? Because the Patrick from the competition is not the Patrick that you know from these hotel rooms. You see that computer behind you? That's Patrick. AI is truly terrifying, isn't it? It was you the whole time, Katie asked with concern. Sure was. Suck you didn't get to know the real Patrick. Seemed like such a nice guy, says Otto. Why are you trying to do this to me? Asked Katie. I wanted you gone. People were starting to notice that you were the one running the show at my restaurant, and magazines started to call me a phony, a statue, or a trophy, something that people come in to idolize. But the real chef is Katie Thompson, who gets no recognition. Jealousy? All this because you were jealous? I got a little recognition? Doesn't matter now. Guards, come and finish your job. She can't run anymore, says Otto. 2 men came from behind the door, but they weren't guards. They were police officers. Otto Gannon, you are wanted for the murder of 11 victims and the attempted murder of another one. Please lift your hands above your head and walk straight back to us, says the officer. Otto looked at Katie and knew it was over. He lifted his hands up and walked towards the officers without resistance. The policemen escorted Katie outside where the sun was coming down and hit her face for the first time in almost 2 weeks. She could finally breathe. The cops asked so many questions. Katie answered them all. She went over the cooking show, the murders, everything. At the end, Katie just wanted to go home. She caught the next plane to New York City, where she would go to her apartment in Brownsville. She went past the elevator that for some reason was now working. She continued walking to the stairway, though, and walked up 12 flights of stairs to her apartment. That smelled ever worse than before. There was a dead rat in her sink, but she didn't care at that moment. She fell face first into the bed, and it went straight through the frame and hit the floor. Katie just laughed. At this moment, she was just happy to be back home. A few months later, we would find Katie in her lawyer's office. Okay, Miss Thompson, sign here and the restaurant is officially yours, says the lawyer. Katie ended up getting even more than the $1 million off of the court case involving Otto. She would walk into her own restaurant, previously named the Lumineer. She would remodel the place and give it a fresh new name, Sliced. On opening night, everything ran smoothly as before. The sous chefs all respected her, and she didn't scream. She encouraged them to do better, so one day they could all own their own restaurant. She declared to never let success get to her. She would never be like Otto. At the end of the night, Katie was walking down the street when someone stopped her. "Miss Thompson, I love the food tonight. I was wondering if you can do catering. I'm planning an event for next week and would pay you anything to have your restaurant be the food at this event." "Of course. We would love to. Give me your card and I can reach out to you tomorrow and set everything up," Katie says with enthusiasm. The man gave Katie his card. "Looking forward to hearing from you." He walked away. Katie continued walking down the street. After a few steps, she looked at the card. The card was blank, but read one thing. Season 2. That is going to do it for today. I hope that you guys enjoyed Sliced. If you did, please click that like button, hit that subscribe button. We make videos 3 days a week, usually. Of course, 1 week out of every month. There's 4 videos because I put the whole story up one day. But usually every Monday we do an episode of Echoes of the Past, which is where I go over the history of haunted locations. Every single Wednesday, we do an episode of Far From Fiction, which is my true crime series. And then, of course, Fridays is the Friday Night Campfire Stories. Except for, you may notice, this month there is an extra Friday in there. There's 5 Fridays. My stories only have 4 chapters in them. So, next week, next Friday, there will not be another campfire story. But there will be a video out for you guys that I hope that you guys would take the time to check out. Also, my collection of short stories, Whisper in the Shadows, is available now on Amazon. You can get the paperback edition as well as the e-reader version. The link is in the top of the description if you want to go ahead and check that out. It would mean a lot to me. So, that is all for today. Hope you guys enjoy. Click that like button, hit that subscribe button, and as always, thank you for spending a little bit of your day here with me.